Perfect. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. So I'd like to officially open up the call to this board meeting. Today is March 25th, and it's about 12:04 p.m. Eastern. So before we begin, I'd like to welcome all the board members and guests. The first thing I want to do is conduct a roll call. So as I call out your name, I would appreciate if the board members would respond to here. I have a nice list of people. Steve,
Here.
Harold,
Here.
Sam,
Here.
Ashwani. She might still be here. Evie, is Evie here?
He just joined,
Okay.
but he's got to answer.
Diego,
Here.
Evie.
Here.
All right. And Ricardo is here. That's great. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining. Let the record show that the only board member not present at the time of roll call is Ashwani. Hopefully she joins the call a bit later. I did not receive any message that she'll be missing the meeting, but hopefully she'll join in a few. I would like to thank all the guests that have arrived today and the staff for attending the meeting. I always appreciate everyone's time. So with that, we'll proceed to the conflict of interest and antitrust statement. Pull that on that monitor. And so as the board consists of individuals from many different organizations, OWASP and its board shall abide by all applicable antitrust and competition laws to avoid any perceived or actual conflict of interest or antitrust concerns under U.S. federal, state, or local regulations. Only the published agenda shall be discussed, voted upon, or amended as stated below. If there are any conflicts of interest, board members are expected to disclose them now. So if a conflict arises during the meeting, you are expected to recuse yourself from discussion and voting on that matter. Additionally, I want to remind everyone of OWASP's conflict of interest policy, as well as our director's commitment agreement. These documents guide us in making sure our decisions are free from bias and serve the best interests of OWASP. So if anyone has any conflicts of interest to declare at this time, please do so now. And I would take that as no one has any conflicts of interest. That is great. All right. Let's proceed with the published agenda then. The first thing we have on there is, are there any changes to the agenda? Now, I think that there is one item that was required to be moved to the executive session, and that will be around the credit card. Yes, the Amex one. We're going to move that item to the closed session. Are there any
Right.
objections to that? All right, great. All right.
Okay.
So, with that, I would ask Andrew then to, well, wait a minute, sorry. Thank you for scrolling back up. We have to approve the minutes. Have all the directors read the minutes from the last board meeting? Are there anyone who hasn't read them? All right.
So the January 2025 one had a very small amendment. There was a vote that was taken where Avi abstained, and the vote was previously recorded as a no, but it wasn't a no, it was an abstain. So this has been corrected. So there's no change to the actual vote, but in the voting history and the minutes, they both now agree. That's the only change.
Okay, the results were corrected, so that's a good spot.
Yeah, and that was a handover issue between you and I, Ricardo, because that was an e-vote, and only you could see whether that was a no or abstain. So when
I was not trying to trick you, I promise.
teething
All
issues.
right.
Sorry.
So
Yes.
for the February 2025 meeting minutes, let's take a quick vote to get approval. I will run through the same list. Steve,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
is Ashwani here? Nope. Okay. Avi,
Yes.
Diego,
Yes.
and that's a yes from me, Ricardo. Great stuff. All right. Hopefully all the board members read the pre-reading materials so that we're ready for questions during the session.
Mhm.
So I think we have individuals here from the events committee. We want, as a board, to get continued updates from our committees out there. So I've asked the events committee to come and provide us with that update. So who will be presenting or leading that presentation to the board today?
That would be me, Izar.
How you doing?
Hi, everyone.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, thank you. So I have three slides to present.
Okay.
If I could get the share.
Yep, you've got the permissions. Did you want to run through the management report and the finance report before we go to normal business?
Is that question for me?
For Ricardo.
Sorry.
Oh,
I was just being respectful of guest time, so
Okay.
if you wouldn't
Okay.
mind, you just handle that first and then head to the report afterwards.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think the same thing happened at the last meeting, Andrew. I think the standard kind of order is that we usually keep new business after the management update, but because we have guests, I think we just reshuffle the agenda, and I think it doesn't require a vote, just requires a consensus to support that the items are reordered. It's the same agenda. It's just
So if
bring the
anyone has
guests
an
forward.
issue, say it now. No? Okay. Yeah. If you wouldn't mind.
all right. So we got just a couple of things that we can share with everybody here. So first of all, just to remind everybody, the events committee started in 2024. We are sort of a new thing. We have 5 members: Maria Mora, Alison Schubert, Erzi Alon, Josh Grossman, and myself. Changes that we have implemented in the last year, that sort of year that we have been up. There's been improvement in the event process, the whole how do we get a global event going, and some things to call your attention to are that now we have a much better feedback loop to the OWASP.com, to the OWASP organization, with dates and messaging and getting all the text for CFP and CFT out and that kind of thing. And we have experienced a really continuous and accelerated back and forth with many thanks to Lauren. She's been doing an awesome work in supporting us and in giving us the opportunity to help where we can. So kudos to her. We have completely revamped the way that we do reviews of submissions for the CFP. So where before we had a large body of reviewers and people got to review whatever they got to review, and then there were a couple of different meetings that eventually would generate a schedule or an agenda. Now we have divisions per track leads, so we have 1 track lead per track. Those people are free to create their own review teams, so they call on people that they agree or believe or trust that have knowledge in the specific context of their tracks. And the hope was that this would generate talks that are more filtered to something that's interesting for our current audience. And based on their recommendations, the committee then gets together, looks at it, and draws the final schedule and agenda. Again, with collaboration from Lauren. CFT, we also touched that a bit. It used to be the same process as CFP. But now what we do is the committee itself reviews all the submissions. We have significantly smaller number of submissions on CFTs. And the new thing is that now we have a list of trainers that have shown good performance in the past. And instead of having them go through the CFT and review process, we basically invite them to come and train again. And in this way, we try to fill as many seats as we can with people who we can sort of look back and guarantee that they have a good response from the audience. We are also trying to add new things to the global events as much as we can. We now in Barcelona, we are going to have the 3rd edition of the Meet the Mentor event, where we try to pair people between mentors and mentees. We are trying to improve the program, do something where we continue after the event to track those pairs of mentors and mentees. Still not sure how that's going to go, but we are trying to go into that direction. Also, the how to create a CFP and submit a CFP that Avi is very generous of his time in helping me present. We did have a bit of I won't call it a failure. I will call it a learning experience with Developer Day. We tried to run it for, I believe it was San Francisco. It did not go so well. But on the other hand, all the conversations that came from there helped push us in the direction of Dev Week, and Star did an amazing work, and kudos to Star for that. And we had the opportunity of minimally helping in getting that ball rolling, but it's all her doing. So we look forward to be able to do more of that. And issues that the committee is experiencing right now, we do have some problems with media recording and distribution for the events in terms of how do we edit things, how do we put them on YouTube or something else, and if it's open, if it's closed, for how long, things like that. So we are trying to figure out what the right thing to suggest to the board to be done is. And we have the perennial problem of marketing. We do think that we have to extend beyond the audience that we have right now, and that there's an opportunity here to reach outside and more extents. The events committee is not equipped to do that. And there have been a lot of parallel conversations around how we do marketing, how we reach out. We would like to be more involved in that. The members of the committee do have ideas, and we are just looking for guidance on how to get that ball rolling. As I mentioned, we have 5 track leads for the reviews. I just wanted to present them to the board here. So we have Shruti, Marisa, Star, of course, doing the projects track, Eugene and Matthew, all of them extremely experienced professionals, all of them people who with their own tracks in presentations and in pushing initiatives, and they are being extremely helpful in getting our reviews off the ground. And just to close with an idea, the numbers of Barcelona. We had 338 submissions, among them 290 unique speakers. Of course, 5 tracks. We accepted 64 sessions. And the number of submissions per track we had for the manager culture 64, for the builder track 87, for defender track 86, for breaker 59, and the project submissions who are not actually submissions because there's a separate process for that, and a couple of invalid submissions that we got that were either pulled back or did not go through the, I would say, threshold to be considered a valid submission. We had 42 of those.
That seems like a high number. Okay. Thank you very much for that update. Are there any members on the board who have any questions for the events committee? Wow.
So I have a question for you with respect to media, and I think I see Avi was raising his hand as well. With regards to media and recordings of the conference, I think this is something that we discussed previously as well. I'm aware there are some challenges around this. Do you have a vision, a brainstorming? How can we improve the situation there?
So right now we are sort of making do. The board is well schooled in the events around the media recording, actually more than me. And we have been including Hung in the event committee meetings with the idea of sort of creating a subcommittee for media for events. At this point, we don't know if that makes sense or not. It's something that we've been toying with. That subcommittee would be responsible for managing the whole, what do we do with the recordings of the talks. And again, we are just trying to be practical here. We are not saying that this is the way to go or that this is the absolute best way of doing it. We're just trying to be proactive so that we can offer something after at least Barcelona. In terms of going forward, again, we have a lot of ideas, but I don't think that that's a decision that has to come from the committee unless we are told that that's expected. And in that case, we'll be probably happy to jump in. And the other members of the committee, please jump in here and keep me honest. Does that answer your question, Sam?
Yes.
Okay. Evie had his hand up next, and
Yeah.
then Andrew.
So it sounds like you guys are doing amazing work, and the changes you've made so far are really impressive, especially around the CFP process. Do you have thoughts or vision around how to do the same thing for everything else around the event? We talked about the event is not, it's punching way below its weight and not doing where we should be doing. It's good for what it is, but we have talked about making it much bigger and better. And that touches on a lot of different factors. Do you have that somewhere in your roadmap at how to 3x it?
So now I'm speaking for myself, not for the committee. I'm speaking as a member of the committee, but basically for myself. I think that first of all, we have to answer the question of identity. I think that OWASP needs to decide who it is and where it's going and who is it going to be when it gets even bigger. And that will drive who our audience is, and that will drive what the events have to offer, right? We can do more of what we're doing right now and perhaps get better results, or perhaps keep it where we are. But I think that having a roadmap or a vision will come as a consequence of having a frank discussion of where we want to go.
I'd like
Yeah.
that. Look forward to it.
I think we as individuals have, some of us, probably all of us, have many ideas. We basically wanted to make sure that everything is aligned and less rickety before we move on. Maybe it's time.
Yep.
Clean up the kitchen before you start cooking new stuff. Like it.
All right, Andrew.
Mute would be good. Okay, 2 items. One is the video recording. This year, as you know, we were hamstrung by the lack of Cooper at Barcelona. So we're not going to be able to record in Barcelona, even though it would be possible. But at DC, we would have to use the hotel's AV, and the amount of money that it was going to cost us was just outrageous. So one of the deciding factors for signing new contracts is that we can use our own AV providers. So we can find a much more reasonably priced AV that can record sessions. That said, the reality is that we need to find a very basically another Cooper for the United States, because the reality is that we only get a limited number of views for our sessions on YouTube, whether that's through a lack of promotion or just simply a lack of interest. It's hard to say, but I get more views for my streaming, and I stream a very niche game in a very niche subject. And that means that, I only have 195 subscribers or something. OWASP has 65,000 subscribers, so there's possibly a lack of appetite for the material, but we don't know. We need to do better marketing of the video recordings that we do have. The second point is that we are trying to evolve the concepts that we actually have at our um, our sessions. We're looking at unconferencing. We're looking at changing up the member room to maybe have a music room instead. We really want to make sure that journalists have an open invitation to our events so that we have greater impact, because I think one of the problems that we have is just simply that people don't know that our events are going on in the wider industry. So we are looking at that from the staffing point of view, but we want to work with the actual events committee to make sure that working hand in hand, and also the board to make sure that the board's event strategy is pulled off.
All good ones, Andrew. And I just want to add that, you know, if you guys do have ideas, please put them down on paper and please share them. Or even come back and say like you want to present those to the board. Always happy to hear ideas on how to improve things or you know, just make things better. So
Yeah, so Lauren is working very, very closely with the events committee, and we don't want to have too much daylight between what the events committee are doing and what the staff are doing. We really want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
okay. Are there any more questions?
Can I just clarify something with Andrew, please? Andrew, when you said that we have permission to record the videos ourselves, is that for both Barcelona and Washington, D.C., or just for Barcelona?
In Barcelona, we just didn't have the ability to get a reasonably priced AV person in, and Cooper was unavailable, and we could have if we had someone. DC is just not possible. It was like 250,000 or something. Lauren, please correct me on the amount for recording every session um, at DC.
In DC, I think the total cost of recordings was, I need to go back and look, but I want to say between around $20,000 for DC. It wasn't as bad as Barcelona. Barcelona was going to cost us tens of thousands of dollars.
Laura, my question was, are we allowed? Because I think the San Francisco hotel definitely didn't allow us to record. They insisted on using their own AV facilities. Because if we're allowed, that means, as Andres mentioned, finding like another US-based Cooper, someone, a volunteer who can do the recording. But if we are not allowed by contract, that's a different problem.
As long as we're not in a union property, we can record our own. If the issue presents itself in places like San Francisco where we are union.
I just want to highlight the wonderful work that Jonathan Marcel has put in for many, many years on recording videos and editing them. It's a thankless task. Unfortunately, it looks like he stepped aside a little bit and may not be doing the next batch. So we do need to find a new video editor.
That's fine.
So,
Can we take it as an action and for the events committee and maybe board members ask around for any volunteers?
Sorry, Sam. Right now, we have been talking with Hung, who's been working with Jonathan, and I agree, Jonathan has been doing an amazing job so far, and thanks to him. And Hung has expressed interest in continuing doing it. But again, it's one person. We may not want to fall back in only one person. And apparently Star has the great idea here on the chat that we call for help.
I like it. Thanks, Star.
Okay. We're a bit over the allocation for this discussion, but that's okay. Are there any more questions before we move on to the management reports? Okay. Andrew, would you take us through the management reports, please?
Yeah. In the interest of time, because we do have a packed schedule, I'll try to be as quickly as possible, and I'll hand over to Chris. Can everyone see the executive director update on the screen? So the family health situation, for those who don't know, my wife was admitted to the ICU on Monday, and basically she remains in a high dependency unit. We don't know when she'll be released, and if I need to take annual leave, I will work with Ricardo and Steve to make sure that we have the appropriate approval structures in place. I think for the sake of charity CFO, what probably we'll end up doing is if I'm to take a break, Harold will do the initial approvals and Ricardo will do the final approvals for anything over Harold's signing limit, which is 100,000. There's no expected bills in the next month that meet that requirement. We do actually have a deposit to pay for Barcelona coming up in April or May, but I'm not expecting it at this very moment. So if I'm to take annual leave, the likelihood is that we need to just get that in place. So I'll work with Chris and Leah to get Ricardo onboarded into Bill.com to do the approvals. Ricardo, if you not have access to Jira at the moment, I'll make sure you get access to Jira. Yeah, Harold.
Who is your secondary signee for things like contracts and whatnot?
At the moment, the signing authority doesn't delegate that to anybody besides me. And that is a bit of a single point of failure that we probably do need to address. What I might do is bring that up to Ricardo and maybe we can do an e-vote to delegate that to one of the directors and we'll see how we go.
I think that's a great idea.
Yep. The London trip went really well, except for we didn't quite achieve what I wanted to do in Brussels. We made some new connections in the Commonwealth, the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. It was just simply the Foreign Office many years ago. And then we had dinner with Sam and Semgrep. That was an amazing dinner. Sam's Rolodex is overflowing with really important people that we should definitely be touching base with. So I really think the London part of the trip went really quite well. It was worthwhile. But in particular, what I would probably suggest in future is where we have a board member nearby, such as Sam, it might have been probably a better use of funds for Sam to have attended that day. And we can't keep on volunteering board members for these things, particularly, you know, they've got their own work as well, but at the same time, we also need to be cognizant of costs. Because I don't like making trips for one purpose, I did go to Brussels. I did meet with the VAT desk, and we've got some answers, and we've been able to move things forward with VAT desk. But with my family health situation, that has come to a crashing halt. The director and officers insurance is up for renewal. 4 million for directors and officers is my recommendation. Ricardo, you did suggest that you were going to come back with some advice. Do you have an update for the board?
I unfortunately do not. I need to follow up with my contacts there, but I do think that it's worthwhile at this point to up that limit.
Yeah.
Don't
I did, Andrew, as requested. I submitted to insurance for a quote on the 4 million. She said she was working on it. She'll probably have that tomorrow.
Yeah. So I would recommend it. I think honestly, we've always sort of indexed our directors and officers insurance as being a multiple of our annual revenue. Our annual revenue hit 3.8 million last year, and I think 4 million is very likely to come. So we do have a very limited time here. So once we get the quote, unless there's any objections, we will sign for 4 million. We're not looking at a huge amount here. It does go over, most likely go over my signing authority. So I'll work with Harold. We're looking probably in the range of $10,000 to $12,000 for the DNO insurance this year. But as we scale up, this is just price of doing business, I'm afraid. The update on the status of the new EU entity, well, there are documents which the VAT desk folks need, which I've been working on getting. the VAT registration for Spain. Spain is requiring a document that just simply does not exist. I have reached out to the Delaware corporations folks to see about getting a document that they've asked for, which is basically a certificate of standing that actually mentions my name and the directors' names. That's it. It doesn't sound hard, except for the fact that Delaware has an automated system for producing certificates of good standing. The fact is this document does not exist, and it does look like we may have some difficulty getting registered for VAT. So we'll just keep on pushing for the EU entity, which seems to have less of a, and then register for Spain VAT through the new entity. I think that's the way that we're going to have to go at this point. The old EU entity, there was some general discontent from the old directors about winding up the actual entity. It looks like they are prepared to do it. It's just that there is discontent. So what I'll do is I'll just simply continue to push for that one to be wound down. There is an updated chapter committee charter for approval. It didn't make this month's business, but it might be worthwhile having that for April's business. If you want to have a look at it, I can forward that through. I believe the chapter committee did forward it. Ricardo, you were about to say?
Oh, I haven't seen it, so if you wouldn't mind forwarding it, that would be great.
Yeah.
To the board, yeah.
Yeah. And so, Avi, if you've got any feedback on the charters, because I know that this is one of the things that you were really excited about, it'd be worthwhile providing that feedback and maybe getting it onto the April agenda.
Yes, please. Although, Andrew, considering the other discussion around committees and working groups, perhaps we should put that on ice for a few weeks.
Yeah. Well, I'm only suggesting that we talk about it at Amsterdam and then look at the charter in the light of that conversation.
Agreed, 100%.
With that, are there any questions for me before I pass on to Chris?
A question from me, Andrew. One of the things for Brussels was to meet with the new proposed EU board candidates, either in person or virtually, because we only met with Maxime and Aram last time. Did that happen?
No. As it turned out, the just simply getting the folks to come to Brussels, it just turned out by Wednesday that there was no plans to do any signing, so I didn't ask them to come. I have actually met all three virtually, but if you do wish to actually have a discussion with Bertwin, which is the last one that you haven't met yet, I'm very happy to provide Bertwin's details and let's have a discussion with him. He makes an excellent independent director.
I'm sorry, who was his name?
Bertwin Uriel. We've actually got a bit of a hiccup with Maxim and Aram don't speak French. The bylaws are likely to be written in French. So we'll get an English translation and make sure that they're happy to sign their names against the at the notary. This is an outstanding issue.
The bylaws have to be in French?
They're either in French or they're in Flemish, depending on the region that you sign them. And so and because it's in Brussels, it's French.
Okay.
Yeah. It's one of those strange things. There's two different languages in the country, and we're going to get it wrong about half the time.
3, actually, but nobody talks about Loon.
Okay. Chris.
Yes, Andrew, I'm very sorry to hear about your wife, and let us know if there's anything we can do to help support you if you're out of the office. Can you all see my screen here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we are presenting February financials here. We'll start off with the statement of financial position. I will say that I'm not sure the audit went so long. It is officially wrapped. I don't know if it was officially wrapped when we met last month or if we were in the process of wrapping it up. but we had a successful audit. It's officially closed and for this year, and Leah is in the process of scheduling our audit for FY 24 to begin hopefully in June. We're waiting for the auditors to confirm that date. We anticipate that it'll go much faster this year. As we're auditing a year that we've had your books all year, I would expect to be closed by the end of September if we begin in June. So good news on that. Today I'll be presenting the statement of financial position as well as the statement of activity for the month of February. Even though I know you all voted to approve the budget last month, there's some additional detail that we need from Andrew. The overall budget is set, but there's detail regarding the location of some revenue and expenses and the timing and months that we need before we can incorporate that into our accounting system in order to get projections and run a P&L by location and event the way that we have been doing. So I do not have a cash flow forecast or the budget versus actuals this month, but we should have that all in place next month. And Andrew, if you have any questions or anyone else that Leah should reach out to for that detail.
No, I'll
Just
get
let
it
us
done
know.
before I go today.
Wonderful.
If not, Andrew, send it to me. I can work with Lauren and stuff and get it done, if you
Yeah,
can.
sure.
On the statement of cash financial positions, cash did increase by $94,000 during the month of February. We are using a new platform related to collecting funds for events, Glue Up, and thank you, Dawn. Dawn and Leah have been working very hard to gain access and reporting to that site and have everything aligned with the locations and the way that we need to report it. So we will be able to reconcile this account here for the month of March.
I do want you to know that it has been updated, it just wasn't updated before the report went out.
Yes. Yeah, we have to lock these numbers and start working on these very early in the month. So I know Dawn and Leah have been working on that quite a bit. Accounts receivable increased due to some sponsorships that came in, and I have a little bit more detail on the sponsorship revenue when we get to the statement of activities. But accounts receivable did increase by $175,000 during the month. Total assets between the cash and the AR increased by $278,000. And liabilities were relatively flat for the month, just a small increase in accounts payable, taking the liabilities up to $61,000. Total net assets at the end of February were $2,980,000. Dawn?
Were you able, I don't know if it was you or Leah, able to work out with Andrew the stuff with the accounts receivable that I didn't want taken off?
Yes, I updated it.
I
Yes.
got all that. Okay, I wasn't
Yeah,
sure.
so we did make all the updates. We did write off some old AR. It wasn't a significant amount last month, but we did
The
make all.
ones I gave you, you wrote off, but the other ones you
Correct.
put back.
Correct.
Yes.
All
that's
right, because now I can start working on it again. I didn't know, I didn't want to make it crazy. All right, thank you.
Yeah, we just confirmed that we wrote off the ones that had both, that had your approval.
Okay, cool. Thank
Okay.
you.
Jumping into the statement of activity and looking at total income, year-to-date total income, we are at $803,000. Most of that, $607,000 coming from conference sponsorships. It's kind of coming across the board. I did look at a bit of the detail because I wanted to make sure and see how we were compared to the budget. We've received, let's see, I'm sorry, I have the detail over here. We've received $267,000 in sponsorship for the European Global Aspect in May. We've actually received $153,000 for the US Aspect in November. in sponsorship revenue. And then $35,000 for Basque and about $90,000 for Snow Frock. And that makes up the largest part of that $607,000. Total expenses for the month are at $197,000 compared to $178,000 last month. And the biggest increase in expenses is in conference expenses. That was up by $19,000. When I do look at the budget totals, we had budgeted for net income of $443,000 year to date and net expenses of $492,000 year to date. So we are again exceeding income expectations. And again, it's related to sponsorship. And we're slightly under budget for expenses. We had anticipated by this point putting down a venue deposit. From a budgeting standpoint, we anticipated about $100,000 deposit placed on a venue for the May date, and that hasn't happened yet, but it sounds like it's getting ready to happen soon. So all in all, again, having some issues with the timing, revenue coming in a little bit earlier than anticipated, and expenses coming in a little bit later than anticipated, but we're pretty online with the budget and not a significant change across the financials. We're seeing the trends continue. We'll have a lot more detailed information next month when we have that detailed budget in the system. And we can again then start looking at cash flow. And we do have the historical data this year that we didn't have previously, looking at the trends in cash flow. So that's all been incorporated into the budget. And hopefully we can make some decisions about your cash on hand and making sure that we're getting the most out of that, because you guys do have quite a bit of cash on hand. But I know that certain months we have very high expenses due to the timing of conferences.
Just,
Any questions
sorry,
about-
one thing. We did a lot of expenses in the last few weeks for travel, so that it'll be a big uptick on that, on the credit card.
Very good. Yeah. Any questions about the February financial reports?
None.
All very clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew, is there anything else we can help you with today? Oh, you're muted.
I'll work with you after the meeting, probably later today, on getting Ricardo and Harold set up correctly, just in case I have to take annual leave.
Absolutely. We have an all agents all firm meeting today. We won't be available, but you can send it
Okay.
and Leah will follow up with you.
Okay, no worries, and I'll
Thank you all
get
very
the
much.
details of the location and revenue, and I'll loop Dawn into that so she can follow up.
Very good. Thank you all.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Great. Okay, next we have new business. So we have a discussion on combining the Gen AI and AI exchange projects. So it looks like the Gen AI project has a bunch of sub-projects, but not including the AI exchange project. So there are likely synergies between the two projects, and it's proposed that the two projects be combined into a single project. So I guess this is a discussion. Who brought up this discussion point, Andrew?
I believe it was Avi.
Okay.
But we do have both of the projects. We have Scott and also Rob Vanderveer in as visitors.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you do want to hear from them, I would definitely recommend it.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah,
Just to clarify,
so
I did not bring up this topic. It was
oh,
raised
sorry.
as a question. I wanted to have a discussion around it before we vote on flagshipping it.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I'll open it up to the guests first. If they want to say anything at this point, that could provide us some maybe a little more background or a little more clarity, and thoughts on the actual combining or the potential combining of these two projects.
So
This is
yeah.
Scott. So I guess I'd say that maybe one thing to do is to understand a little bit, maybe share a little bit more about the Gen AI project and how we're operating
Sure.
to kind
Yes.
of have that as input into how that might come together, as a suggestion.
So Scott, you've got and Rob, you've both got share screen permissions, so I'll stop sharing.
So would you like me to, so as a point of order, would you like me to, the next item on the agenda is to kind of do an overview of the Gen AI project. Would it make sense to reorder those items so that there was a background and then to further the conversation?
I think you can basically show the structure of how your program operates, and then just skip that when it's your turn for the flagship discussion.
That makes
Okay.
sense.
Perfect. Just wanted to make sure. So let me go ahead and share the slides that I have, and maybe I can highlight a couple of things and we can come back to those. So I think it is worthwhile setting context here a little bit too. So I'm going to try to minimize the slides I share. But the project has gone through, as you know, we started out, let me maybe put this in. Oops, sorry. One button over. Let me put this in slideshow. So we started the project out, and why this, and this will become important apparently pretty quickly. So we started out the project as the top 10 for LLM. We then expanded kind of in our phase 2 to be more solution focused, which is really to address some of the use cases we saw people applying top 10 for LLM, and there were a lot of gaps to kind of fill. So we started building out that kind of focus. We then actually started to do a drill down. Our third level, our third phase for the project was to do a drill down on the top 10 because we were looking for more content, more areas of specialty. So we created a initiatives governance framework, which allows initiatives to be proposed to focus on things within the charter of the project. And those are effectively run as projects within a project, to keep it simple. And there's governance around how those are developed. There's also governance around expectations in terms of delivery timelines, and et cetera. So that is a framework that we have in place today. And part of what we've been doing is to, as we've talked with the board and the project board, make sure that what the project has kind of grown to is more representative of what we're doing. So obviously other top 10 lists, expecting them to look like this is probably not realistic. We've now become to the point where the top 10 list is part of this broader project. So this is why we're in the process of repositioning the project. So what that means is that the top 10 list effectively becomes one of the initiatives that we have within the project. And then we're really focusing on developing content for the practitioners around it. So the mechanisms we do have a mechanism for adoption. We've also, with this, we've updated our governance. So our updated governance, before we were one project, the top 10 list, with those initiatives growing off of it. So we become a little bit more formal in the way that we structure that. And I can jump to that slide. So today, we've expanded our focus to be very much more what we were before was one large group. with a few assets and documents hanging off of it. To today, we're structured this way, where we have a board of directors, which we now have that can be elected as part of it. This was before our co-project leads. We wanted to provide some forward-looking extensibility for the project as it's grown. Also, we have our core project management team, which oversees the approval and management of the initiatives. We then have, these are our current set of initiatives that we have lined up for the project. Except one's missing on this slide, which is our agentic initiative. So that one should be on here as well. And then we have the three committees that we're working through. One is an outreach committee, which does our outreach. The other is a new budget committee that we're currently forming. Now that we have a substantive budget, I want to make sure that there are more than a couple of people looking at that, and we have forward-looking budget plans for it. And of course, we have a large number of translations we do. And so there's the translations group as well. So just wanted to set that as the framing for kind of how we're operating, what the project has kind of grown to become. So as we think about including other projects, we do have process to consider that within both the board and also the core project management team as part of the overall governance. Any questions?
No, wow, this is very impressive. Evie?
I actually have two questions. Number one, this is like a big umbrella project. Is it at the point now where anybody that wants to create a new AI project for OWASP actually needs to come in by policy as an initiative of the Gen AI project?
We have not, at least from my perspective, we're not trying to become like the one place where everything is. The reason for that is we think that being focused, for the same reason we wanted to focus on Gen AI as opposed to AI specifically, we want to keep it focused for delivery. Part of what we've been able to leverage and why it's been successful is we ended up with a group of experts who had the energy to dive in and to build out these other areas. So it was, that's something we want to continue to maintain. So I think there's perfect opportunities for projects to live on their own. So I don't want to become the gatekeeper for all projects that come into OWASP that are AI related. I don't think that helps the community because they're all at different levels, et cetera. I think our goal was to make sure that within the charter that we set out, the areas of focus that we had working groups that were diving down on those to give better detail solutions and things for people to do. We often do a top 10 list, which is great, but what we kept getting the ask for is, well, what do I do next? And so that's where this kind of grew and became what it is today.
That sounds awesome. And I might be jumping ahead, but how does the AI exchange relate?
So from my perspective, it's been the AI Exchange has been a separate project that has its charter. I've not really considered combining them until this topic came up. So I'm open to, thoughts for, it would have to be something we'd have to take to the board and to the core team for approval. So I would assume we would go through the same process we would do for an initiative if that were the case.
So what I would suggest is hearing from Rob Vanderveer, who's here as the leader of that project.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. I'm interested in the thoughts that were exchanged when the decision of flagshipping came on the table, because I think with Ricardo who indicated this, that's when the question was raised. Apparently, the question wants to solve a problem. What is the problem that needs to be solved?
I don't think there is a problem to be solved here. I think honestly, there is a point where maybe the OWASP top 10 is the umbrella project for all OWASP top 10s, but then the maturity of the top 10 for LLM is such that that may not even make sense. So I think this is a discussion like for the top 10 discussion between the project committee and the board. But I don't see that there's any synergies here between the Gen AI project and the AI Exchange project. They do different things, they serve different communities, and they have had their own trajectories. Yeah,
Yes.
Steve says they, yeah.
And we have Sam and Ashwini also. So Sam had his hand up first, and then we'll take a question or discussion from Ashwini.
Thanks, Ricardo. So first of all, I'd like to remind everyone that what is the OWASP flagship designation? Flagship projects designation is given to projects that have demonstrated strategic value to OWASP and application security as a whole. So everyone on board know what the flagship project is. And the question that I have is to Scott is whether you contacted the project committee, because I attended one of the project committee meetings where they actually expressed concern because there are specific project committee guidelines on promotion and OWASP projects going through it. Like Star was there as well. Star, maybe you can actually take that over from me now.
Yeah, no worries. Scott did join, and then all concerns that Bjorn actually said, I am happy to promote both to flagship now because they make sense strategically. That was his high level final answer as of the last meeting.
Wonderful.
And I just want to touch base, thank you, briefly, and maybe Rob can speak more clearly about this, but AI Exchange, it has a regulatory compliance legal aspect to it that might invite outside collaborators where sandboxing them outside of the Gen AI project makes a whole lot of sense. Rob, did you want to touch on that?
Yes, we have a role where we provide a core framework of AI threats and controls to ISO standards and the European AI Act. And we've effectively already collaborated more than 120 pages of material from OWASP to these standards. That's a very special position. It was quite delicate and still is because they're not really used to liaisons bringing in so much content, but it's necessary because the expertise in the standardization work groups is really minimal, which is exactly why I founded the AI Exchange, to coordinate expertise from OWASP to make sure that these standards happen and build, general, so not generative, but general AI security framework. And this is where there's a difference with the generative AI project, because our focus is AI in the broad sense. So there is overlap where we talk about generative AI subjects. We refer to publications of the generative AI project, for example. And the generative AI project started out as a top 10, and then there was a lot of energy, which has really been remarkable and commendable, and then turned that into basically an incubator of initiatives, all kinds of initiatives around Gen AI. But I'd picture it like this: we have the AI Exchange. It's a core framework of threats and controls that serves as one continuously evolving resource, basically a bookmark for AI security practitioners, either predictive AI or generative AI, with a lot of references, including the LLM top 10. And then the generative AI project that focuses on generative AI with the top 10 as sort of the main attraction, but producing a lot of projects, but all about generative AI. Do I say this correctly, Scott? Any?
Yeah, no, I think that I view them as complementary as well. So that's why I said I hadn't really considered, combining the two until that point was brought up here in this meeting. But yeah, which is always a good point to bring up, right? It's always good to ask these questions. So I agree that they're complementary. And what we do, just as we reference stuff that you guys do, as well as the other way around, right? So the reason we wanted to focus on generative AI and keep it focused on that space is because it's moving so quickly and there is so much change that just trying to handle that alone or provide guidance there alone is more than enough for the team to try to accomplish. So yeah, I think it's very much, and there are, like you said, there are crossover points because we both work with the different standards organizations, but that's a benefit, I think, for OWASP overall. That they have multiple touch points to be able to provide that kind of insight and support.
Hey, thank you both very much for providing that insight. It sounds like there isn't much appetite for combining both of them. So I think that I don't feel like there's any further discussion required here. I could be wrong. If any one of the directors feels I'm mistaken, they can raise their hand. Evie raised his hand. Okay, Evie.
So I'm curious where the suggestion to merge them came from. I thought it came from you guys, from Rob and Scott. So I'm just not sure where that came from. Because I didn't suggest it, I just wanted to hear about it.
Oh,
okay.
I did not suggest it for the reasons we were just talking about.
Andrew, do you know where that came from?
I do not.
No, I don't. And quite frankly, I think these are such separate projects with such different trajectories that I would recommend at this early stage of the AI revolution that we let them both flourish as individual projects.
Agreed. Yes, definitely. Sorry, Sam?
Yeah, then the question is, are we talking about promoting both to flagship or is it just the Gen AI?
On the schedule, I just saw Gen AI, but I did hear that there's a desire for both.
Well, since Rob is here, you could extend the vote with general consensus to make both flagship. But I'd like you to hear from Scott about his budgeting, his fundraising, and all the other aspects that make his project absolutely a flagship maturity level. It is also very strategic to OWASP, to Sam's point. But I think honestly, having a seat at the regulatory table is also flagship. This is something that is we should be doing more of, not less of. And I'd be very supportive of both projects being promoted to flagship because of their the different roles in the community and our outreach to regulatory environments.
Okay, I totally agree with that. Evie, and then we'll move on to the discussion on flagship.
Right. Just to be clear, I still stand by my seconding the motion to make them both flagship. I would have one comment that I feel like we do need better differentiation on that. Even hearing from both of you, are kind of still trying to thread the needle of each one. So a request from, consider this not as a member of the board, but rather as a user of the projects, to figure out which, to be clear on what the projects actually are for whom,
To
right?
that point, the Gen AI project actually has a significant marketing budget and could potentially spend a little bit of its time carving its own niche out. But then we would basically encourage Rob to also maybe do a project spotlight or something like that to highlight what their project is doing, because they're doing very different things.
Yeah, I don't even mean marketing, which is great, but I mean just you come to the site and it takes you a while to figure out, which one is the one that I actually need.
Yeah, and you're getting to one of the points of why we're working on some of the rebranding and so this helps us kind of get away from that. There was definitely confusion with just the top 10 project. Now that we're rolling that in, having generative AI security project for us gives us a little bit more focus. We're trying to be clear about this through our mission statement. So we now have updated mission statement for the project. I know it's kind of hard to read when it's minimized like this, but this is an area, if we've got clearly delineated mission statements, is probably the best way to kind of keep it to help people from a guide perspective. And we're also working to, and one of my biggest challenges right now is just onboarding people and getting them effective. So we have more people asking to participate than we have. Than we have being able to get them, in my view, as effective as I like them to be. So we have some work to do in terms of improving our onboarding. That's not to say that we don't have people jumping in a lot. It's just that I would like to make them more efficient more quickly. That's part of it. So in separating this, hopefully the mission statements will be a good way to have this separation. And this is on the website as we've been doing the updated branding and positioning for the project.
So
let's
Scott,
see.
do you want to just go through your rebranding? Because obviously your rebranding, you're going to release you've got a PR package ready to go. Do you just
Yep.
describe to the board the process if flagship is approved, what your process would be to announce that to the world?
Yeah, so let me start with saying that we're moving through the rebranding as the request came obviously from the feedback we got from the project board as well, to make sure we were clear about differentiation between what the group is now doing versus what we were doing from the top 10 list. So making this has also been part of some of the requests that came through from the project board. And I think it aligns well with what we're doing. Once we, if we were to get approved for this, we would, to Andrew's point, we would have a PR that would go out that would talk both. We already have the PR scheduled to talk about the rebranding because we have education to do around that, as well as we've got 8 new sponsors that we want to highlight, along with some translations, 5 new translations. So that's sort of the package we want to highlight. If we were approved for flagship, we would highlight that in that PR. We are also working on a roundtable, a press roundtable ahead of RSA, where we're bringing together some of our sponsors, and that would be part of the topics that we bring there. We then are hosting the Gen AI Security Summit at RSA. So taking the role that OWASP had before. Last year, we had about 150 seat space which we got together at the last moment through some friends and family. And we had standing room only and people standing out the side. So I'm hopeful we'll have another good turnout this year with the more content we have. And then lastly, we'll be continuing to educate people and press and others about the project. So that's sort of our generalized kind of rollout plan.
So I just want to highlight to the board that Scott has been extremely active, along with the other members of the actual project itself, in fundraising. Not only do they run
I think Andrew froze.
His connection might have come
Yeah.
back. Yeah, he froze. Okay.
I can pop into some of the things. I can continue to give a little bit more background on kind of where we were on things. So as we talked about, we've saw a lot of pickup for the initiative. So we've been working with press analysts and others as we continue to educate folks about it. Our publications, we've got 10 plus publications that we put out since I think it would be since September. So these are in addition to the initial publications, and we have a roadmap for more. We've been getting broad community support. So we have quotes not only from members who are part of our program, but also the industry at large that we're capturing. And we do have a broad pickup from different countries. So we are getting sort of that global presence and engagement. This is from our website that allows us to kind of get a feel for where people are coming from, which is also driving some of our translations. As Andrew mentioned, and lastly, we have a public roadmap. So for each of the initiatives that are running, there are specific deliverables and timeframes that are coming out for each of the project initiatives. And this is part of our governance process with our initiatives to make sure that we have an effective plan for assets as they are coming out so that people know where to jump in, how to contribute to the community, and where they can leverage their expertise. As Andrew mentioned, we did launch a sponsorship program. We looked at it a couple different ways. We looked at it in terms of we have two kinds of kind of corporate or organizational partnerships. One are supporters. Supporters are organizations like universities, companies who are providing us resources, people, commitments, that sorts of things. Sponsors are companies who are actually providing direct funding to the project to address key things around operations, outreach, et cetera. And so with that, we've got two different levels that we have from our sponsor levels. And then we have our pricing there on the side. So we have a full program set up of what the sponsor gets, depending upon their sponsor level. A lot of it is focused on inclusion in the assets we publish. So sponsors get included in all of the assets in the back, which we publish, so they get to put their logos in there. Supporters have line listings, so we want to include them as well, so we're not exclusive in that regard, but it gives them a higher level of visibility. Also access to some joint marketing activities, doing some webinars and other things that we're working on. We've been fairly successful in getting sponsors. This is our current list of sponsors that we have, both at the gold level and at the silver level. To simplify it, we do have the gold level is effectively, I should go back here just to give you an idea of pricing, and we'll throw this up here in slideshow so it's readable. So we have gold and silver. We broke it down by employee count. So depending on the size of the company, and then also based on if they're a startup with less than 30 million, we want to give them a discount as well, because we want to bring startups into the process as well. And we've been pretty successful doing that. So we have a lot of startups that come in at the silver level. But we do have quite a few that we do want to make sure that we weren't just necessarily giving away the store to large companies as well. So that's our pricing structure, which has resulted in our sponsors to date. There's actually, I just noticed there's a couple that are missing from here that I need to update this slide of the ones that we'll be announcing. So we'll have, I think I said it's 8. I think there's 8 new sponsors total. So there's 2 of them who are missing from here. Through that sponsorship, total right now we've got 19 total sponsors. We're looking at what our targets are and forecasts. So a lot of the sponsorship has been in the initial phases was active. Some of it became a little bit more passive, more people coming to us to be part of the project. So we're hoping to have more inbounds. The more visible people see the project and the value they get out of it. We're hoping to bring more inbounds in there. But we are looking at least 5 to 6 targets that we have on plan for Q2. We want to try to keep our revenues growing, and I'll share those in just a second. So we're focused on that for our next stage. Here's some examples of the targets that we have. We have a couple other people who are volunteering within the organization to take on sponsorship. So I'm hoping this next year, our goal is to get more people participating on the operations side. And that way we can start to scale a little bit more. So from a financial, I'll jump down to where we are, I can also share our community growth stats here as well. But right now for the year to date sponsorship, we've raised just under 300,000 for the project. And these are designed to be an annual recurring sponsorship donation. So the expectation as we look into our forecast for 2025 is that there will be some fall off. So I always factor in fall off. So I'm being maybe a little too optimistic with a 15%, probably 20 is probably a little bit better. but I'm going to be optimistic for now until we get to Q3. So we're looking at, with a drop off in our current funding, somewhere around 224. So we do need to pick up some revenue, some sponsors in these other quarters. If you look at last year, because we only started this in Q3, we still have an opportunity, I would think, to pick up at least around 40K in Q2, and then bolster some more in Q3, depending upon how the success of the rest of the resources goes. So that's kind of where we are today. And as I've worked with Andrew, part of the funding that we have here is project-specific funding that we're using to do things like support our RSA events. We're going to be having a networking event in San Francisco for all OWASP folks to kind of participate in. So we're funding that as well. So to build more community around it. So those are the things that funding is going toward. And then we're also, folding back, another roughly 45 or 42, 44 of 2 that goes directly to the general fund for contribution.
All right, that's great. Thank you very much for that insight. Given the time and a few items that we have left, I'm going to ask the board if there are any questions, but I would like to go toward the vote on this, if possible, in the next few minutes. So are there any questions, concerns, Avi, that you want to raise?
I feel the need to reiterate, and Ashwini made a comment. Looking at the AI exchange mission, it seems very familiar, very similar to the Gen AI. So I think it would bode well to work on the differentiation to be very clear. This is for that, this is for that. I mean, there's a lot of common ground, obviously, but I think it's important to clarify which we're looking for when. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Scott, Rob, do you object to that?
I don't.
What are you thinking of? How you like to see that implemented, Avi?
I think when you come to the project, it should be very clear. This one is for me. This is the one I'm looking for, or that is the one I'm looking for. If they're both about protecting AI systems, that just sounds too familiar, too similar.
So I think when somebody new who's starting off in security can be able to tell the difference between the projects, I think we've made the point clear, right? So it's like a one-liner difference between 2 projects. Maybe the differentiator could be what problem we are trying to solve with these 2 different projects, right? So something of that sort. And hoping AI Exchange would also cater to agentic AI and all, right? So we could include that in the description to call out the difference too. The problem statement and what kind of AI we are targeting, I think that should help.
And just to be clear, when you folks described it verbally, it was very clear, right?
Yep.
I think that needs to be reflected in the project as well. Do you disagree with that?
Yeah, I mean, we can transfer that clarity to our deliverables for sure.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I wanted to say. Basically, we need to understand what are the deliverables of both projects. So what is the difference in deliverables? Because at the moment, I can see that, for example, Gen AI project, the deliverable is OWASP top 10 for LLM and whole bunch of guidelines on AI security. And OWASP AI Exchange is guidelines on AI security and privacy, but also the type of guidelines and requirements which will go into international standards. So you see where the similarities are. So if you define the deliverables very clearly, that will help to understand which project to select for particular task.
I work with Scott and his team on the exact wording in the line.
Yep.
We can also
and it'll be easier too, I think, because we're rolling out this new branding, which has a very specific initiatives that we're focused on. And so if you're looking at, I think this is where things like red teaming may not be something that you may go right to AI. Red teaming for Gen AI right? Because the context here is anything that's generative AI as opposed to, as you were articulating correctly, Rob, there's, there's pre and post, there's general AI use cases. We're trying to keep it very focused on that Gen AI, although Gen AI is a big piece and overlaps, right? Because we've been doing AI for eons. This is sort of an evolution of that, but being clear about that, I think, is important.
Ricardo, just in the interest of time, I think we should probably take it to a vote unless there's any other discussion.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I did provide, and I can provide it for background to Andrew. I think I provided you to some slides if people want to look at the community statistics, which are included in the slides.
I did provide it to the board in a private message.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to read the motion here, and then we will take the vote. So resolve that the OWASP Foundation Board of Directors promotes the OWASP Gen AI project to flagship status. The sponsor is Steve and seconded is Evie. I will read the list that's in front of me and answer yes or no or abstain when I call your name. Steve?
Yes.
Harold?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Ashwini?
Yes.
Avi?
Yes.
Diego?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. So it passes. Did we want to vote on the second project as well?
I would like to.
I think we should. So
Steve is
and
sponsoring that. I'll second it.
Yep.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said if Steve is sponsoring it, I'll second it.
I'll sponsor.
Okay.
second.
Steve is sponsoring. Avi is second. I will read a motion.
Just one comment
We
here.
have to
Is
take
that
a vote to
change over the agenda?
Okay. So let's take that vote to change the agenda then. All right. So sorry, let me get my list in front of me again.
Let me post the resolution into the chat so the rest of the board can see.
Thank you very kindly.
Where is the chat?
I know I have 1,000 windows up myself.
Rob, assuming that this vote does pass, please note that the differentiation or slight rebranding, however you want to go about it, is even more important.
So if this goes and passes, which is likely, I'm not going to presuppose, but Rob, I will get you listed on the flagship project list on the front page of the OWASP website.
Beautiful.
While we wait for Andrew, Harold, you had your hand up.
I've already posted it into the chat.
Just a point of note that as a project, OWASP AI Exchange does not exist in the list of OWASP projects on the website. So
I'll
is
get
this the
No,
actual name, or is it the other privacy and security project that I posted earlier?
I'll work with Rob to make sure that all of the branding and the projects in the projects, like the metadata that we maintain, is brought together and harmonized so that people can discover the flagship projects that we have. So very good point, Harold. I was struggling to find it myself. That's why I pasted a link to the actual website.
All right. Yep, I see it in the chat there.
So that means a bit of rebranding on that as well.
Potentially, yeah. So let's do a vote to change the agenda here. So we want to do a change of agenda to accommodate. Yes, Evie?
I just want to clarify the motion because of the confusing name right now. The project name is one thing, but it's actually known as the other. I think both names should be in the motion.
Oh boy.
Agreed.
Okay.
What is the other name?
OWASP AI Security and Privacy Guide.
That's the official project name versus what it actually is known as.
Yes, in a short story, it started in October 22, OWASP AI Security and Privacy Guide. Then I noticed the need for more depth in privacy in security. So we have the privacy part still in the OWASP AI Security and Privacy Guide. And then the exchange is everything security.
Rob, I'll work with you to come up with the unified branding for your project, and we'll make sure the website is reflective of both.
Great, good idea.
Thank you all. All right, let's do a vote on changing the agenda here. I'll just quickly go through the folks that I have on my screen in the same order I've been doing it. Steve,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Ashwini,
Yes.
Avi,
Yes.
Diego,
Yes.
and I am a yes myself. All right. I see Andrew has posted the motion inside of the chat, which I will read. Resolved that the OWASP Foundation Board of Directors promotes the OWASP AI Exchange, aka the OWASP Security and Privacy Guide project, to flagship project status. I will go through the names as they are on the screen, as I've previously done.
Who is the sponsor and the second?
I
Sponsor.
thought that Steve and Avi, but yeah, okay. And who's the second? Is it Avi?
Avi, yeah.
Okay, I thought so. Okay, no problem. Sure. Steve,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Ashwini,
Yes.
Avi,
Yes.
Diego,
Yes.
and I am a yes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations all. Thank you very much for coming today and providing us some insight and more information about both of these very important projects.
Thank you, and thank you very much.
Okay. Excuse me. What do we have next here? We're gonna move that one. Steve Wilson wants to be admitted. Okay, great. After that, we want to discuss. Do you want to go into discussions really quickly on flagship projects, or are we sufficiently done with that discussion?
I would like to suggest that we table this for Amsterdam because this is a longer discussion and we should definitely be reviewing the status of current flagships in light of their activity or otherwise.
And strategicness. And honestly, that was the extent of the discussion that I wanted to raise. And just to be clear, we do review it around once a month, but it's always very passive and lukewarm.
Okay. I see we have a bunch of discussions about committees, all of which are 15 minutes long. We don't have that much time in here. I would recommend tabling these until Amsterdam, if that's okay with everyone. I think it would take a vote for us to do that, because I know we have a closed session as well that we have a number of items to get through, and I would like to do that today. So what say you? Does anyone have any objection to that? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Do we need to vote on that?
You do need to vote to table.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's a change to the agenda, right? We're removing these items from the agenda.
All right.
So you need to do it for the
discussions?
flagship. Yeah, so the
would-
funding committee, the marketing committee, and the diversity committee, and the flagship project discussion are all proposed to be tabled to Amsterdam.
Yes. So in the interest of time, what Andrew said, and then I'm gonna take a vote. And so Sam, when you go back through, I can always write it up for you, but that actually was very clear. So let me just get up my list of people again. Steve,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Ashwini,
Yes.
Avi,
Yes.
Diego,
Yes.
and that's a yes from me. So we've tabled those all for the Amsterdam meeting. All right. I think that is all for today. I'd like to thank everyone for their time, and any guests still holding on. Thank you. Thank you for making it through the meeting with us. Dawn.
Just one thing I had on my slides, and you could do this in Amsterdam.
Mhm.
I know it's a staff thing, but I know last year the board members were talking about not doing WASP awards. I just need to know because I need to start the process and when I'm going to do it. So if you could somewhere put it on an agenda that I just get an answer because I need to figure out what I'm doing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. So with that, I will adjourn the public meeting. So the next general board meeting will be April 22nd, 2025 at 12 p.m. US Eastern Time. It is moved and seconded to adjourn. Do I have, well, I'll sponsor it. Do I have a second? That will be
That's
Steve.
Steve.
Steve, yes, sorry.
Yep.
Yes.
Those in favor, say aye.
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 All right, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
We do have the executive session now, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We're
I'll
just
stop the
gonna
recording.
Stop the recording and wait for everyone who's not part of that to drop off here.
I'd like to propose we take a minute or two